seminar one day by a friend of mine, Dr. Jonathan Gibbs. He's a smart cookie, this guy. He's got 3 PhDs. And he got everyone to stand up and he says, "Barbara, tell us about our second heart." And I went, "Did you know you have a second heart and it's your calf muscle? So it's great for the venous system." But what I'm going to look at now, and one of the symptoms of a hormonal imbalance is insomnia. What I have learnt on my many years on planet Earth is never to be absolute, because no two people are exactly the same, and different symptoms come together with different people. Because we are all a result of, yes, genetics, but genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. My mother died at the age of 51, a cripple in a wheelchair with rheumatoid arthritis. You've probably noticed that I'm not a cripple in a wheelchair, and I'm not dead. I'm so glad that genetics may load the gun, but it is lifestyle that pulls the trigger. And with genetics, you can turn it on or off. It's an interesting study. It's called epigenetics, the effect of our lifestyle, even the way we think, on our genes. Now, coming back to sleep, a lady rang me up, or she emailed me, and she said, "Barbara, I can't sleep. I can never sleep." And I wrote back and said, "Don't say that again." She said, "Why not? It's true." I said, "Have you ever tried being thankful for the fact that you can't sleep?" She said, "Why would I do that?" Because our body is very obedient to our mind. And if we say, "I can't sleep, I can't sleep," do you know what the cells in the body say? Looks like we can't sleep. It's called cognitive behavioural therapy. So what I want to show you is exactly what happens when we sleep. And I want to look at all the influences that influence our sleep. Because remember Proverbs 14 verse 6, knowledge is easy to him that understands. We have a little gland right at the back of our brain, in the base of our brain, and it's called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland releases 4 hormones every night. But it will only release those hormones between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. It's got to do with the moon, the tides, but that's when it's released. Now, in the summertime, yes, it is between 10 and 3. So I had to travel 3.5 hours by car yesterday. I know where everything is in Australia, but I'm still finding out New Zealand. And I knew that I had to travel that far, and I started to investigate, when am I going to get there, because I need to get there in time for my sleep. Because I know how important the sleep is, especially after studying what happens when we sleep. So I was very glad that I was actually able to get into bed by 9:15. That was pretty good. What are the hormones that are released? One hormone is serotonin, and serotonin is the mood hormone. If you want to feel good, go to bed early. What are the kids like if they have a late night? Nah, not very good, didn't get their serotonin levels. Another one is epithalamin. Epithalamin is a very interesting hormone because it increases learning capacity. So I say to teachers, "Can you tell the kids that had late nights?" They said, "Oh yes." They just can't grasp the concept, they can't retain the information, or because they went to bed too late. I remember there was a bit of a scary story on the news about a drive-by shooting that happened in the first or the second floor of an apartment. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and the news said, and there was a child in there on the computer. I thought, what's a child doing on a computer at 1 o'clock in the morning? It was almost said as if, oh, this is quite normal. It's very important for there to be, not everyone likes the word rules, let's say guidelines, in the home about access to technology. Very important with this developing brain. That brain's not as thick as an adult brain, so it's even more susceptible. Epithalamin increases learning capacity, and to access that we need to go to bed early. You might have heard the old saying, an hour before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight. You've heard that old saying? And now the science is showing us why. Epithalamin also, and everyone over the age of 25 likes this one, slows down ageing. So there's your anti-aging hormone. When do you access it? In the earlier part of the night. Another one is arginine vasotocin. And arginine vasotocin puts you into a deep sleep. A lot of people that can't sleep think if they go to bed later, they'll get tighter. But the opposite's true. The earlier you go, the more likely you are to fall into a deep sleep because of arginine vasotocin. And arginine vasotocin is your natural painkiller. Did you know you have your own natural painkiller? What you'll discover as we go through these classes is that everything we need, we've got. We just need to know how to access it. But when you use your arginine vasotocin, and you will use it if you're in pain of any sort, there's a waste. And if that waste is still there the next night, no more arginine vasotocin is released. So how do we get rid of the waste? Well, I'm going to take you through the basic laws of health, and I was very happy to see the little book, The Ministry of Healing, because the Ministry of Healing contains a chapter called The Physician, the Educator. Did you know that that's what physician means? Educator, teacher? There's a lot different to that now, isn't it? And in that chapter, The Physician, the Educator, the author lists the basic laws of health, or the basic guidelines for optimum health. One is pure air. We need pure air because when we get pure air, we get better oxygen levels. The second law is sunshine. Did you know that sunshine into the eyes through the day, they cause a better release of these hormones from the pineal gland? It looks like there's going to be a nice day today, doesn't it? Number 3, stop. There are some things that must stop if you're looking for optimum performance. And what happens with caffeine, with refined sugar, with alcohol, it inhibits the release of these hormones. So that's one reason why many people struggle with sleep, is because the caffeine they're having through the day. Now, if you're a coffee drinker, don't stop. You didn't think I'd say that, did you? Ease off. Otherwise, you'll suffer terribly. People say, do you drink coffee, Barbara? I say, no, I just watch the people suffer. Day 1 at our health retreats. Ease off it. If you have 3 cups of coffee a day, start having 3 half cups a day. You won't suffer because your body's getting the drug. We've got a book in our library called Caffeine Blues, and the author, Kachansky, he's got a chapter called Coming Off the Bean. And he shows how you can come off it little by little without pain and suffering. And basically that's how a third of a cup, half a cup to a third of a cup to a quarter of a cup, little by little. And often within a week you can be off without pain and suffering. And that inhibits the release of these hormones. Number 4, and this is the one I'm getting to, is exercise. When you exercise in the day, it causes a release of the side effect or the waste that's released with arginine vasotocin use. I have a friend who injured her back badly as a nurse. I think they have orderlies now that do all the lifting because too many nurses' backs were going. she had an operation. They did the best she could, and then they sent her home, and the only thing, or the only hope they had for her was painkillers. And then there's an addiction to the painkillers, and then the painkillers aren't quite dulling the pain like they originally did. That's when the person has to take control. That's why I am the master of my destiny. I'm the one that chooses what I do. I've met 5 people in my travels who sustained serious back injuries, and they are medication and pain-free today, but it's hard work. One man, I met him only a few weeks, well, I've known him for a few years, but I lectured near his facility recently when I was in America. He says, I work out for 1 hour in the gym 5 days a week. And when I do that, I have no pain. Now, the reason that works is because your abdominal muscles or your core muscles, they are all connected to your spine. So when you strengthen core muscles, that automatically has a compensatory effect to hold the spine. Isn't that interesting? Because what's the options? The options are a life of pain and addiction to medication. And this guy, he is so fit. And he's 41 now. He said he can beat the 18-year-olds in the gym. He is so fit. And his mind is sharp. What happened to him, he was skateboarding down a hill when he was 28, and he hit loose gravel, came off, and he slid all the way down the hill with his elbow under his body, and it pushed his spine out. And the doctors really couldn't do anything. But he manages it now by strengthening the core. And you know what that also means is when he sleeps every night, if there's any pain, his arginine vasotocin helps to put a lid on that. Nice to know we have our own personal painkiller. So my friend who hurt her back, she was on pain-killing medication, hitting the coffee, miserable life, and she was only 35. And then a lecturer came to town talking on back health and how to manage back pain. So she went, and he said, walk 5 kilometres a day. You walk 5 kilometres a day, it strengthens the muscles, it strengthens the ligaments to hold that back, but it also causes a release of the waste build-up from using arginine vasotocin at night. She got off all her medication. She had a new lease on life. The 4th hormone is melatonin. And melatonin is called the fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. And it's because of the release of melatonin in these hours that this is when healing increases in those hours. So what can inhibit the output of these hormones? Caffeine, alcohol, many drugs do. Light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to a control centre in the brain where the body clock is located, and it communicates with the pineal gland. Notice what I just said, light and dark signals. Our eyes need to be getting sunshine in the day, that's a clear sign. And then when the sun goes down, the light should be dull, ideally dull. And our whole body starts to get ready to go to bed. But we have screens now. Now sunlight, it has a high amount of blue light, and they have discovered a receptor site on the retina that takes in blue light. And they found that when we're getting adequate amount of blue light into our brain, tactical reasoning increases, the ability to solve mathematical problems increases. Now, we should never look at the sun, our eyes will tell us that, but just being outside, those sun's rays are going through and maintaining that balance, and also causing a release of these problem-solving hormones. But the screens, particularly the short-range screens, this is computer, iPad, iPhones, Game Boys, they give off blue light. but it's a different frequency. So sorry, you can't look at the phone to get the benefits that you get from the sunshine. But it's similar enough so that if you look at your phone in the middle of the night, the message to the brain is, daytime, wake up. If you can't sleep and you look at your phone, you will not get back to sleep. 80% of Americans sleep with their phones. Would that be New Zealanders? And the pillow's no protection, by the way, unless your pillow's made out of lead. All technology should be out of the bedroom. If you're charging your phones, your computers, your iPads, in the next room, in the bathroom. So the electromagnetic field coming off is totally different to the electromagnetic field in our body, and it causes a disruption and can interfere with the sleep cycles. So technology is a huge disruptor, not just the electromagnetic field, but also our viewing. And not only the blue light that comes off. How can you go to sleep if a person's just watched a violent movie? The brain is stirred up. Television's not so much because it's not close, but television, it's more the content of what you're watching. It should be some lovely scenes of nature and classical music, something like that. But ideally, it's reading. A lady said to me, my son, he's 11, he has trouble sleeping. So, where's my why? I put my detective hat on. Why isn't this boy sleeping? What time does he go to bed? 8:30? I said, that's good. Because children should have about 12 hours. But then he wakes up. What time does he wake up? 11 o'clock. What does he do? Any guesses? Gets on his iPad and plays games. Well, no wonder he can't sleep. I said, get rid of the iPad. In fact, my brother-in-law, he charges all the teenagers and the children's iPads, iPhones in his office overnight. Great idea. Gathers them all. In fact, one family said, we've got a basket, and as they go out of the lounge room, everyone puts it into the basket. Keep it out of the bedroom. I said, yeah, no iPad in the bedroom. Give him a book, and a boring book, okay? The Life Habits of the Australian Platypus. Nothing too exciting. Maybe you find that exciting, but something, and just a soft light. I always read to go to sleep, and I know when it's time to go to sleep because the book falls on me. Turn the light off. So what can increase the output of these hormones is pure air. Sunshine in the day, dark at night. Stopping the stimulants, daily exercise. And the next one is rest. So basically, retiring by 9. If you want to go to sleep at 9, you've got to start thinking about it at about 7 o'clock. You don't think about it at 5 to 9, otherwise you won't be in bed by sometimes 10 or past. The next law is proper diet. Now with the proper diet, we're also looking at timing of food. In Genesis 1:29, God gave the perfect diet. He said to Adam and Eve, behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, in the which of the trees a fruit-bearing seed. So what's a herb-bearing seed? A herb-bearing seed is a grain. A herb-bearing seed is a legume. A herb-bearing seed is also a seed. Sesame seed, sunflower, pumpkin seed, and the nuts. And we've also got vegetables and fruit. And when you look at this is a balanced diet. But I mentioned timing. We should be eating breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and tea like a pauper. One lady said, what do paupers eat? I said, sometimes nothing. And in Australia, people usually eat breakfast like a pauper, lunch like a pauper, and the tea is the king and the queen together. And when you go to sleep at night, your stomach wants to sleep. And a lot of stomachs are breaking down. We're going to have a look at the gut. We're going to go on a journey at 1 o'clock through your gastrointestinal tract. Very interesting journey. And remember, knowledge is easy to him that understands. I'm going to give you an understanding of how the gastrointestinal tract works. But when the sun goes down, digestion slows down. Everything slows down because it's time to go to sleep. So having the largest meal at the end of the day disrupts sleep. And a lot of people that don't feel like breakfast is because they ate too late at night. If you eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen and tea like a pauper, you're hungry in the morning. So timing's important. You can Google time-restricted eating. It's come out of the 5-2 diet or the intermittent fasting diet. Time-restricted eating looks at eating twice, 6 hours apart in a 24-hour period. They're finding that diabetics are coming off their medication. They're finding people are losing weight. There's a whole lot, even mental problems are easing. Because as you'll see at 1 o'clock, poor old stomach is usually overworked. Because what did they used to tell diabetics? Eat every 2 hours. You know what they're saying now? We made a mistake. It's actually time-restricted eating. 2 hours. Twice a day, 6 hours apart. Now, if someone works early and they have breakfast at 6, they're going to need to eat again at 12 and then something light at night. What's light at night? Soup, smoothie, some fruit, crackers and avocado. They all digest quite quickly. Number 7 is water. Being well hydrated helps sleep. Now, I don't drink a huge amount of water when I go to sleep because I don't want to get up in the middle of the night. Some people can eat a lot of water, drink a lot of water before they go to sleep and sleep 8 hours. You're the doctor. You've got to get to know what works for you. But the best way to drink water is the way God sends the rain. How does God send rain? Little by little, drops. Doesn't mean you can only have a drop at a time. You might have a few mouthfuls at a time. But you'll be amazed how much water you can drink by having several mouthfuls at a time. What happens when the torrential downpour comes? That's when the floods happen. That's when the topsoil gets washed away. And if someone drinks 500 ml all at once, it's not long before they're going to have to find a bathroom for the 500 ml to come out. But when you drink little by little by little over the day, your body can access that much better. So the time to hydrate your body in preparation for your 8 hours sleep at night is you start early in the morning, little by little all day. Something that often stops sleep is anxiety. So trust in God. Trusting in God is opposite to anxiety. God's method of healing in the body is based on fear. Whereas I'd like to suggest in the medical paradigm, it's usually based on fear. So faith and fear are polar opposites, and we have a choice as to which one we go to. It was probably in about the 1950s they started to do research on rats, on sleep. And what they found is that there were times through the rat's sleep at night where the eye was moving, and when the eye moved fast, even though their lids are closed, the brain was moving. And there were times where the eyes were still, and when the eyes were still, the brain was still. And what they did was they called the busy time, or the rapid eye movement time. You might have heard of this. And the non-busy time was non-rapid eye movement time. And so then they started, in fact, one researcher even was doing it on his little 2-year-old girl, and he found the same thing. And then they had volunteers come in and they would do it with the volunteers. And they found overall that the non-rapid eye movement time and the rapid eye movement time happened in 90-minute cycles through the night. I read a book called Why We Sleep, and it's by Dr. Matthew Walker. And he came to the conclusion after all his own studies and all the studies that he'd read, and he was not happy with this conclusion. But he could not deny that this was the best. 8 hours a night. Now, before I read this book, I used to average 6 hours a night. When I read the book, I thought, ew. When I looked at the effect, and I'll show you the effect now, I quickly came to the conclusion I've got to train myself back into 8 hours. And I did, and I'll show you how you can do that. Let me give you God's perfect mathematical equation. 8 hours to work, 8 hours to play, 8 hours to sleep. Isn't that a nice balance? Do you need to write that one down? So what happens in non-rapid eye movement time? In non-rapid eye movement time, there's a courier system. So what's this courier system? Well, our brain from side on looks like this. And all through the day, the things that we learn go into our short-term memory unit. That's our short-term memory unit, and it's the hippocampus. And then while we sleep, there's a courier service that takes all the memories up to the cortex. And that's our long-term memory storage unit. And that happens in non-rapid eye movement time. Another thing that happens in non-rapid eye movement time is a cleaning system. So what's getting cleaned? In fact, Dr. Matthew Walker discovered that the brain cells shrink up a little bit, allowing more water to flow between the cells, allowing the cleaning system. It's almost like what happens in the cities, the street cleaners at night. What are they cleaning up? Waste from neuronal activity, waste from the combustion of oxygen and glucose at the cellular level, even to the point of cleaning up negative emotions. Isn't that incredible? All happens in the cleaning system. Rapid eye movement time, it's a little bit busier there. There's a filing system. What's this filing system? So in non-rapid eye movement time, the memories are taken up to the long-term storage unit. And they're not just thrown in any old how, they're filed in a certain order. Now there's a saying in neuroscience, nerves that lie together, fire together. You might have heard that. Have you noticed that when everything's going great in your life, you think of all the wonderful things? And when everything goes bad, have you noticed your brain brings up all the bad things almost that you ever went through? Because nerves that lie together, fire together, memories that lie together, fire together. And what Dr. Matthew Walker discovered, that the filing happens in a certain order. So the negative things go together, the positive things go together. There's an order in the filing system. And he also came to the conclusion that dreams have a lot to do with how our memories are filed. Have you noticed how wild your dreams can be? My dreams can be very wild. I had a dream one day that I was pregnant and I pulled the baby out to have a look, but I couldn't get it back in. You almost don't want to say what you dream about because it's wild. That's because you're asleep, and the usual board of senses that sort of keeps into control your thoughts and things, it's actually non-existent while you're sleeping. But what Dr. Matthew Walker came to the conclusion that the dreams that pull up things from long ago and what happened in the day, it's all part of how the memories are filed. Also in rapid eye movement time, there's a consolidation of what you learnt through the day. So make sure you go to bed early, consolidation, because it'll confirm and consolidate the things that you're learning today. Also, this is where inventions happened. I know myself, I get some great ideas at the times that rapid eye movement is active. So let's now have a look at when these systems are the most active. So 8 hours, you could go to bed at 8 and get up at 4. You could go to bed at 9 and get up at 5. That's my favourite. So let's do a 9 to 5. So 9 p.m, and what they found is they happen in hour and a half or 90-minute cycles. So 9 p.m. to 10:30 is our first section. So non-rapid eye movement is the busiest in this time. So non-rapid eye movement in that first hour and a half of the night, 9 to 10:30, takes up 80%. So it's in the earlier part of the night that most of our memories are being moved and the cleaning system is happening. Whereas rapid eye movement time between 9 and 10:30 only takes up 20%. So the next hour and a half is 10:30 to midnight. 60% non-rapid eye movement time in this section and 40% rapid eye movement time. Now we've got midnight to 1:30 a.m. and in that time it's about 50-50. So moving on through the night, the next one is 1:30 to 3 a.m. and then we get a swap over. Now we have 40% non-rapid, 60% rapid eye movement time, and last 2 hours of the night, 3 to 5 a.m, we've got 20% non-rapid eye movement time and 80% rapid eye movement time. And this explains so much. Have you noticed if you go to bed at 9 and wake at 12, you don't usually remember a dream. But if you wake at 3 or 4 in the morning, you usually remember your dreams everyone dreams every night. You only remember it if you wake up in the middle of it. You know we're the only creature that uses an alarm clock. I actually don't use an alarm clock. I only use it if I've got a very early morning flight. And when you wake up in the middle, that's often when you remember a dream, waking up in the middle of it there. I wake at 5 every morning. My eyes just wake because I've had my 8 hours. It's ready to go. It can be as black, but I wake ready to go. And many people don't wake feeling like they can leap out of bed because they got to bed too late, or they're dehydrated, or they ate too late at night, or they had coffee or alcohol. Alcohol might put you to sleep, but you'll wake with half-charged batteries. So there can be a whole lot of reasons why the sleep isn't happening well. Doing postmortems on people with Alzheimer's and dementia, they found that they have amyloid plaques, which are calcified deposits in the front part of the brain. Now, the front part of the brain is where our reason, intellect and judgment and decisions are made. What's reason, judgment and intellect and decisions like on someone with Alzheimer's and dementia? It's not there. So they came to the conclusion that it's the amyloid plaques that inhibit that part of the brain being able to make decisions, inhibiting judgment, intellect and reason. So students, when in the night does the cleaning happen? It's in the early part of the night. In the early part of the night, if we go to bed early, this cleaning system, it cleans up any start of those calcified deposits. Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, both famous people who boasted that they only needed 5 hours sleep a night. Were the 5 hours between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m? No. The 5 hours would have started about 2 o'clock in the morning, which means every night they missed out on the cleaning system. Do you think Margaret Thatcher, look at Margaret Thatcher, brilliant mind, also developed because of her studies. Do you think she would have started to go to bed early if she'd known how she was going to spend the last 20 years of her life? I think so. I don't know anyone that wants to get Alzheimer's or dementia. Am I saying this is the only cause? No, I would never do such a thing. But from what I've shown you, it's a large contributing factor. Because what stops people to going to bed at 9 o'clock is 99% of the time technology. One lady said, I can't go to bed at 9, I'll wake up at 2 or 3. I said, well, you've got your hours of power, you've got the most important, and you can train yourself back into sleep. So how did I train myself from 6 hours to 8 hours? Because as soon as I read this, I thought, right, I'm going back to 8 hours. Well, when I would usually wake up, maybe to be 4:30, my brain goes into the chat room. Have you heard of the chat room? Let me introduce you to my chat room. As soon as I wake up, right, now today I'm going to do this, and I've got to get that garden going, and I'm yes, my granddaughter's having a birthday, and I told her I'd make her a full circle skirt, so I've got to get that. I don't know whether my brain's worse than most, because my father and my brother are both inventors, and that's actually straight where I go. I had to get out of there. Maybe you don't do that in your chat room, but I think everyone has a chat room. And you've got to get out of the chat room. Because if you don't get out of the chat room, you will never sleep. So there's a few ways you can get out of the chat room. And how I get out of my chat room, I love memorising. And I've memorised big portions. And the biggest portion I've memorised was James chapter 1, 27 verses. Took me a long time. Took me about 10 months. And what I did was I just did a verse a week, and I go over it and over it and over it, because repetition deepens the impression. Repetition is the mother of retention. Very similar, same process as learning to play a piano. I can't sit down and play a piano, but if I sat down every day for an hour, maybe in about 10 months I could knock out a tune. So what I do is I go through the memory verses, and in the morning I think, where did I get? I think I got to verse 13 because I got out of the chat room, because I'm concentrating on what's next, what verse and what word is next. I get out of the chat room. One lady said she gets out of the chat room by thinking of someone in her childhood that she just loved. She loved going to their house. She loved the garden. And she lies there thinking about all of those things. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, the Bible says, in everything give thanks. So you can lie there and say, thank you, Father in heaven, that I can't sleep, because now I can talk to you. Now I can think about all the wonderful things in my life. And if you don't think there are any wonderful things in your life, it's time to buy a ticket and go and spend 6 months in an orphanage in Africa or India helping the orphans. And you'll come out of there realising you got it good. So these are ways you can get out of the chat room, or putting a soft light on and reading a book, not an exciting book. What's the old way? Maybe this is a very New Zealand one, counting sheep jumping over a fence, counting from 100 backwards. My son James said he lies there and says, don't think. That's how he gets out of his chat room. It's just finding a way to get out of your chat room. Because if you get into the chat room, you'll never sleep. And that's how I trained myself back into 8 hours. Another thing that will stop sleep is if you look at your phone when you wake up. That's why I have it out of your bedroom, so it's not a temptation. One man said, but I'm on call. I said, well, put it in the hallway, you'll wake. And another thing that will stop sleep is getting annoyed with the fact that you can't sleep. That's why you've got to lie there and be thankful. Be thankful. Thank you, Father, I can't sleep, but I know I'm going to. Remember, your body, all your cells are obedient to your mind. So you may not be able to sleep, but you can talk yourself into it. It's called cognitive behavioural therapy. If you say it's good, it will be. If you say it's terrible, it will be. Exercise, getting exhausted, physically exhausted through the day certainly helps you sleep. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 12 says, the sleep of a labouring man is sweet. When you're physically exhausted, you're more likely to sleep. And we have an age today where a lot of people are on technology, a lot of people are watching a lot of television, and you'll find they can't sleep well at night because their body hasn't been used. So if you're unable to move very much, you can get an exercise bike or the rebounder. You can start like this with the rebounder. This is called the health bounce. If you're a bit unstable on your feet, grab onto something, it'll help you. Did you know that there are more accidents on the road from people falling asleep at the wheel than to alcohol? And they do recognise that. If you noticed all along the highway, I know in Australia, take a rest, take a rest, take a rest. Why are people falling asleep? Because they didn't get their full sleep at night. So you can train yourself back into sleep. In fact, the research is showing that we can be rewiring our brain right up until the day we die. That's good news. They used to think our brain was hardwired, meaning it was set. So the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, do you know the researchers prove that to be totally wrong today? You can. Where there's a will, there's a way. Children need a lot longer. Children need about 12 hours. So my little grandchildren that come and stayed with me a few weeks ago, I put them to bed at 6:30 and they woke at 6:30. And how do you get them to bed at 6:30? I notice you have to start at 4:30. You can't just suddenly stay at 25 past 6, okay, bedtime, you get World War III. You start easing it. You give them a light tea, you have a hot bath, you have a story. If it's still light, you pull the blinds down and you smile the whole time. Oh, isn't sleep a wonderful thing? Some ladies say, Barbara, my baby is 10 months old and still waking to feed in the night. I said, yeah, that's right. My baby slept through the night from about 2.5 years. I just used to sleep with them. If they woke, I'd stick them on and I'd go back to sleep. Now, that wouldn't work if a woman is under the influence of alcohol or under the influence of drugs, because one must be a little aware. But do you know, if a blanket goes over a baby's face, wow, they fight like the billy-o, even a newborn. And the reason I did it was because I thought, how do the African women do it? How do the women in the little villages do it? They've always slept with their babies. I just got more sleep if I did that. Now, not everyone's happy to do that, but I don't think you can sleep very well when the baby's crying. So I just had the baby with me. You've just got to do what works. Now, I say to women, and this is what I used to do, I used to feed my baby to sleep, and then I'd lay the baby down in the little cot, and then the baby would wake maybe midnight. So I say to ladies, you've got to give husband half the night, because husband's number one, babies are second. And when a lady has a baby, oh, she just loves that baby, but you must never forget husband. And so it's just finding out what works for you. But many children are staying up just too late, and it's got a lot to do with their growth. It's interfering with their growth, it's interfering with their brain development, it's interfering with many things. Where in the book, The Ministry of Healing, you know what the author calls these? She calls them the true remedies, and I have found that to be true. So no matter what the problem is, this is where I start. Whether it's hormones, whether it's thyroid, whether it's skin, whether it's gut, we always start there. Always start there. And then do adjustments to actually remedy the problem. So if someone can't sleep, there are some herbs that can help. Dr. Matthew Walker, he showed that sleep sleep medication really doesn't work because it does not give you quality of sleep and the person can get addicted to it. And so I'm going to show you a few things that can be used. And one is valerian. And valerian is a mild tranquilizer. It's a herb. For some people, this has made a huge difference. For some people, it doesn't have an effect at all. So you just got to find out what works for you. But it's a herb. It's a mild tranquilizer. And one lady said to me her son had had a serious accident and sleep was a real struggle. And she said valerian made all the difference. Sometimes just a cup of hot chamomile tea. That's a very mild tranquilizer. And you can also, I know in Australia there are health food shops and they have tablets that have a combination of herbs. Hops is another good one, St John's wort. So there are a few relaxing herbs. Some people have found that an Epsom salts bath. Epsom salt is magnesium. The hot bath relaxes the muscles. The magnesium in the Epsom salts, because it's magnesium sulfate, just relaxes the muscle, and going from there into bed can really help. Very important to have the window open just a little bit at the moment because it's cold and have the fresh air coming in. What's also important, and this probably comes up to here, is to make sure you're sleeping in natural fibre. I was in America a month ago and the sheets were microfibre and the blankets were polyester. But I've got this wonderful big, very large linen nightie that my daughter gave me. I look like I'm out of Little House on the Prairie in it. It's very nice to sleep in, and I thought I'll be right because I've got my linen nightie. But halfway through the night, I was feeling so hot and sweaty, took the blankets off, got cold, put them back on, got hot and sweaty. There's no breathing with these chemical fabrics. And I don't want to sound like a complainer, but I said to the lady, would you happen to have some cotton sheets? She said, do what you want, look in the cupboard. And I found some cotton sheets and I found a cotton cover, and she also ordered a cotton blanket for me. She even ordered cotton pillowcases. Do you know, the next night I just slept soundly all night. And then I was also reading that, I don't know if you've heard of positive ions and negative ions. Negative ions are electrically charged oxygen molecules, and you get negative ions with thunderstorms and waterfalls. They're electrified oxygen molecules. But you've got positive ions too, and positive ions have a positively bad effect on the body. And polyesters give off positive ions and attract more positive ions, which is more chemicals in the air. And so the far-reaching effect of that. So make sure part of stopping is stopping the chemicals. Watch where your dollar goes. I was staying in Hope International's camps. I got there Friday, so Friday and Saturday. And Sunday I was there. I was so happy to see cotton sheets and a woolen blanket and a feather quilt. That's what I've got on my bed at home. But I was a little cold, so I got another woolen blanket, and then I was good. I was talking to one guy yesterday, and he said in New Zealand, polyester carpets and wool carpets are the same price. That shocked me. Do you know why they're the same price? Because more people are buying the polyester carpets. So please buy the wool carpets. Do you know wool, it doesn't, if there's a house fire, it doesn't catch fire like the polyester, and it breathes, and it's natural fibre. So when your biggest pores on the whole of your body are on the soles of your feet. So when you're walking barefoot on the polyester carpet, you're taking in chemicals. When you walk barefoot on the woolen carpet, you're not. And that more prickly wool goes into the carpets. So be careful where your dollar goes. Go for your natural fibre. So when you sleep, make sure you're sleeping with natural fibre. So woolen blankets, feather quilts. I don't have any polyester blankets in my home, but they're very common. I looked in the cupboard last night to see if there was a spare blanket. It's polyester. Yeah. But they don't know. Many people don't realise. In fact, they're cheap. I'm sure they're much cheaper than a woolen blanket, but there are places like second-hand shops. I've got some great woolen blankets out of there. They're all little things, but they all come together to make an effect. So make sure you're sleeping in natural fibre. One more thing, some people have found melatonin can help to put them to sleep. I only mention these at the end because it's far better to train the body by implementing these laws and going to bed at the right time. It's far better to do it that way. Because sleep revives, it restores, and it heals. Sleep is important. Some people have found that just going on the yam cream helping them to sleep better at night. I can't promise any of these will work for you because for every single person it's a little different. But let's look after our brains and go to bed earlier.